Let's go over some of the features of this Dual WaveBank synth overlay that I've created for the Electra One MK2 version. First, read the manual that has all the setup and installation instructions. But as a summary, first what you're going to want to do is install the dualwaveosmose.mod EaganMatrix preset that is required for the overlay on your Osmose. You'll connect up your Osmose to the Electra One with DIN cables, in to out, out to in. The Osmose MIDI I/O settings will be set to the standard 1.3 for the external clock. For the USB Hocken mode, you'll set that to 2.3 node and matrix. You'll set your Hocken local mode on, and important, you'll set the DIN mode to 5.5 CVC. Even though it says CVC, you need to set that to get full bidirectional communication with your Osmose on the DIN channel to the DSP. So once that's all set up, take that preset, store it to a user position on your Osmose. You'll have to use the editor to get it on your Osmose. Store it to a user position so you can get to it later. Install that or select that as the current preset on your Osmose, and then you'll either install or probably previously install the Dual WaveBank Osmose Electra One preset from the Electra One website. The manual has instructions there. And the manual also has where to get this Osmose preset. You'll install the application on your Electra One, and after you install the preset on your Osmose, the easiest thing to do is, once you've installed this, in an unused user slot, because this will use a new feature that will store user configurations, and if you take another preset and overwrite it on this slot, you'll lose your configuration data. So once you install the Electra One preset on your Electra One in a free slot, do not install anything else in that slot or you'll lose your configurations. So now let's just turn the Electra One off and on. The preset we need is already loaded on the Osmose. The Electra One will come up. It'll initialize the preset. If you have the wrong preset loaded, you'll get an incorrect preset or unexpected preset message on the screen, and then you can make sure you load the right preset and then repower your Electra One. When the Electra One comes up in its proper initialized state, you'll have the two sawtooth waves set at their default octave position, which will be the 8 octave position here, which we'll see change. You'll have the amplitude weight set to their default 0 setting, and you'll have no filters set, and the wavebank mix will be set to full. There are other screens we'll look at, but this is the main screen that should come up in this position, and when you play, you should get just a bass sawtooth sound. And if that comes up like that, you're ready to go. So now let's look at some of the features. This is a dual wavebank preset. So there are two wavebanks, independent, that you can set sawtooth, square, or triangle. Independently. Wavebank 1 is sent to left channel, Wavebank 2 to right channel. If you're filtered, if you're not filtered, the opposite occurs. Right now we're not filtered. I did this so that you can get a little bit of stereo processing on both filtered and non-filtered. Just go to the opposite channels. I could have put in some sophisticated stereo processing. I just didn't have enough formulas left to do anything like that in the preset. So what I could do is create another preset that has different stereo processing, but this I think works pretty good. So we can change these. Here, let me change them both to square. There, you can hear it's a square. I can change them both to triangle. You can hear the triangle is less amplitude. You can adjust for that in your mix. So let's say we want one to be a square and one to be a triangle. I can adjust the square to be a little less in amplitude to even them out. So that's one thing we can do. Let's just set one to saw, one to square. I can change octaves on things. 8 plus 4, basically the default octave plus an octave higher. Default octave plus an octave lower. All three together. Just the octave higher. Just the octave lower. The octave higher and the octave lower. Now 2 octaves down, an octave down, and the bass pitch. 2 octaves down, bass pitch, and octave up. And here we put an octave down, the bass pitch, and a fifth. And you can set these independently, of course, on each of your wavebanks. You can create some really nice organ sounds with this doing that. So that's one thing you can do. You can set duty cycles. This applies not only, it'll change the sound not only for the square but the other ones as well. But you can see here, let's set them both to square. Okay. I can change the duty cycle. That will obviously change the timbre. We'll select that set of controls. We can detune them. And that'll give you a little bit of beating, more detuning if you want. That's the bass non-filtered output. Now we can bring in some filtering. You can have partially filtered and partially raw sound, or you can just bring them all in and then they'll all be filtered. If you filter everything, you have your filter choices: low pass shelved, band pass, band reject, ladder, the Roland type, ladder, the Moog type, and high pass. You can set them independently on each of your waveforms. Then you can set your cascading through the 4 possible cascade options: 12, 24, 36, and 48 dB per octave. You can set a cutoff frequency, filter resonance, and a filter shape. Right now we have an up shape, and you can hear that when I play. Let's change the cutoffs on each of these. You can set them independently, like everything else for the waveforms, and set a little more resonance. And you can change the envelope speed of the envelope that's applied. Right now we have ramp up at a pretty slow speed. We can make the envelope kick in faster. You can see this is pretty nice. You can do a lot of stuff here. All right, let's set it a little slower. Okay. We can have a ramp down shape instead of ramp up. That will ramp down to 0, so the sound will kick off. Now, there's a release envelope on your filters. You can set that, which will hold the sound for a little longer for you. Okay. You can get a lot of nice combinations this way. Let's set those down so we can hear. We can have a triangle shape that'll go up and down. It'll go down to 0, so that will eventually kick off. A pulse, that'll give you a much shorter shape that you can make even shorter with your attack speed. Of course, if we take the release off, there you can get some very nice short attack stuff going on. On the pulse, it was gentle up, gentle down, the Han shape, and If you want, you can just turn the envelopes off and just have raw filtering on whatever frequency and cutoff you choose. Of course, you can change your waveforms, change your octaves, and you can also now add some additional harmonics. Let's go back to something like this. We can add some extra harmonics. Third. You can add on each of the wave banks its own harmonic. And really nice stuff you can do there. On the first page, another thing you can do is we can add some grit to the sound, some noise basically. That you'll hear a little less with the big sound, with a smaller sound. When that comes in, you can hear it more, but it gives you a chance to make a little more complex sound. You can adjust that as you like. Finally, I let you bring in some tremolo. So let's bring that in. And you can adjust your speed and the width on each of the wave banks independently. And as you'll see later, you can adjust this so that only X kicks it in, or it's kicked in on Y, or a combination of them. So that's your basic main page of controls for the Dual WaveBank. And we'll now look at the other pages. Okay, now let's look at the effects page. The first column is convolution. You can bring that in. It defaults off. So if I have a sound, I can bring up the convolution mix, how much wet to dry convolution I'm going to apply. And you can hear, even at a fixed setting, as you change that, you can make quite marked timbre changes. And then I can set where in my convolution range, from wood to fiber to metal, bright to waterphone, the 4 convolutions you can index between them. You can dial in very fine changes here, and change any of the 4 convolutions just like you can in the editor. Now, one thing you can do with convolutions is you can morph. This is a fixed index that's sent now. But if I change the morphing on, I can start morphing between those convolutions at some morph range that I'm setting based on my convolution index. So you can get quite complex in what you can do here. It's like a superset of all the things that you see presets do that you can easily do with these couple controls. All right, let's turn off the convolution. Now I can change my recirculator, my reverb delays, and I can change all the settings I can in the editor. Make that bigger mix, bigger time, or I can go and change my recirculator type as well. One thing you'll want to test out is the new long reverb that you can bring in. And of course, set all of your recirculator options that you can in the editor. You have your EQ settings that you can bring in. There's the tremolo controls that we talked about, whether you want Y to control it or Z to control it. It defaults to Z control. I can turn that off and have Y come in as a tremolo after touch effect. I can change from the compressor mode to the tan-H mode, that new drive mode. One thing to be aware of is EE uses a kind of top level parameter for compressor and for what they call drive, which is really the new tan-H function, the new soft clipping saturation function. What EE does is they give you one parameter for tan-H, and it controls both the drive and the makeup parameter in some algorithm they prescribe. Same thing with the compressor. They have a compressor amount, and what that does is it varies the threshold attack and ratio parameters to some algorithm they use. Well, this doesn't do this. This gives you full control of the actual parameter. So if you make a change, it's going to be a little different than what you do on the Osmose. Now I can bring in delay. There's a dual tap delay with a tap 3-4 option. Tap 1, tap 2 that you set independently, and auto tap 3-4, if that's on, will bring in taps 3 and 4, offset a little bit of time from tap 1 and tap 2. So let's just quickly, all right, we'll bring in how much delay we want and how much feedback. Let's set a pretty high delay time. You can set your delay times, everything you can in the editor, from 50 milliseconds up to 3.2 seconds. I don't give you the lowest and highest options. This should be plenty for what you need to do. Let's do 800 milliseconds and play a note. There you can hear. Now I can start playing with the taps, and if I do that, I will get tap percentage offsets, and that gives me a little bit different rhythms that you can apply when you do this. This is kind of cool. Then we can bring in these auto tap effects. Just gives you an idea of what you can do. And I can also bring in iteration on the filters. So right now the filters are fixed. I can actually set filtering so that, I don't know if I actually have it turned on here. Let's turn on some filtering. We'll ramp one up, ramp one down. Okay. Now if I play and turn on filter iteration, so let's turn off the delays so you can hear this better, and I can set you can hear I have an iteration going on here. You can get nice effects with this. That's the effects page. I have a transposition page. We don't have to really go through this. You can transpose up and down through an octave, and you can turn the transpose off. You can do your fine tuning, plus or minus 60 cents. The actual equal temperament and other tunings, I'm going to have to remove that. It turns out that those are not supported in 10.5.2 for the Osmose, so we'll have to wait to some future release when microtuning and the pitch table editor are supported for Osmose. Finally, there are some common commands that you can set. You can turn the recirculator off if you want to apply your own external effects. You can set your mono mode, your pressure glide, and your glide interval if you want. You can change your pre and post gain settings and do some internal things that you can read the manual about. We don't really have to go into that here. But the most important thing that we'll talk about is how do you save your configurations once you make them. Like the Jenny and ratio overlays, configurations are stored in the overlay itself. They're not stored on the Osmose. So what I've done is I've added a little page here that I've saved some configurations already. We can go back to the default, just the default saw. Here's one with a big delay and some nice filtering going on. Here's something filtering down, etc. So if you have a sound that you like that's set, let's just go to the main page. We'll set something up here. Let's say we want to set both the square. Maybe we want to set a little different filtering. Let's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Get a sound we like. And what I can do now is go to my config page. I'll select a free slot. You can store up to 30 configurations. And then I have a little control panel here that lets you name them, similar to how you name stuff on Osmose. Unfortunately, Electra One doesn't have a nice keyboard panel I can bring up to let you type in, but you can go in here and set a name, select the character, set it, select another one, set it, select another one. If you set one you don't like, you can delete it and go back and do other things. And when you get the name you like, you can just store it. That'll store your configuration in a new slot. We can go back to just a default sawtooth. Now we can come back to what we just had. And that's pretty much the way you can store configurations. The one final thing I'll say is you can only store 30 of these. So once you have 30, you have to overwrite them. Maybe in the future I'll do something to add more, but the way the Electra One added this new persist recall feature, there's limited table space that you can use to store things. So I think I'll limit this to 30 for now. What you can do is once you get a sound you like, you can go on the Osmose and save that to another preset, and the settings that you have in that will be stored, and you can bring that preset up at any time and play it to whatever you set it to. The only thing is you can't make all these nice settings. What you can do to that preset is change the normal things you can change on Osmose. Your recirculator settings, your EQ, compression, whatever, you can make those changes. So that's a brief introduction to what this tool can do. It's a little more involved. I have a 60+ page manual that you can read to do this, and I'm going to release this very soon for beta testing. So I hope people with Electra One, MK2 versions, this won't run on the MK1, not enough memory and resources to run it. I hope that this will be a nice, quick taste of what's possible with overlays, and more to come for the Electra One, which I consider the best MIDI controller out there.